Good morning, everyone. My name is John Heerdink, and welcome to our Tribe Public CEO presentation and Q&A event titled From Mengele's Lab to Global Healing, Dr. Alex Kor on Eva and Mickey Kor's Holocaust Journey and Beyond. The presentation, again, will be co-hosted by Dr. Alex Kor and is targeted to last approximately 30 minutes. Dr. Alex Kor is originally from Terre Haute, Indiana, and is the son of the Holocaust survivors Michael and Eva Mozes Kor, and just so happens to be a friend of mine that we met each other when we were both living in my original hometown in Evansville, Indiana. Alex Kor is a full-time podiatrist for Hendricks Regional Health in Danville, Indiana, currently, and he is a member of the Candles Holocaust Museum Board of Directors and a trustee with the Robert Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership. As many of you know, I am the managing member and founder of Tribe Public. Our website is tribepublic.com. Members from over 35 countries and all 50 states have joined Tribe Public freely to gain direct corporate access to leaders and experts that they care about via our webinar events like today, and via 41 venue sites located across the U.S. where we host in-person corporate-sponsored events, luncheons, dinners, speaking engagements with local tribe members. Tribe members, furthermore, are invited to submit the names of experts and leaders of industry via our free wish list process at our website, tribepublic.com, where they simply add names of companies and expert subjects that span across all sectors and all interests, like today, and so that they can learn more. Please note that I'm also the managing director of Vista Partners LLC, a registered investment advisor in California, and its website is vistapglobal.com. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each site, and I would also like to thank all of you for participating and for all the questions that you've submitted as you've agreed to join today. And also note that we have a Zoom chat feature where you can send in additional questions and we'll do our best to get them answered. If not, maybe we'll have Alex back on the program later on. Also a reminder, a video of this event will be published at our Tribe Public YouTube channel and be sent out to all post this event via our Tribe This Week, which is our weekly e-newsletter that goes out at the end of each week on Friday, typically at 1 p.m. Pacific. Now let's get started. Hi, Alex, and thank you again for joining us today and to share your journey and your current work. And would you be so kind to give us a little more background that what brought you here today, and then go into your presentation?
Sure. John, thanks for doing this. And as you mentioned, we I think it was 1991, we bumped into each other in a health club in Evansville, Indiana, and kept in touch for years. So I am from Terre Haute. I am the child of two Holocaust survivors who have unfortunately passed away in the last almost 7 years. And, as I tell many people, hopefully when we're done with this talk and you think about what we talked about, hopefully you'll be inspired. Hopefully you'll be motivated. You may cry. I usually cry because I have a little distraction there. But despite the subject matter, despite what I'm going to talk about, which is not easy for me to talk about, and it's really not easy for you to hear, my parents had this incredible sense of humor. And don't be surprised, we're here and there, particularly after the war, you may laugh a little bit at some of these stories. And as you mentioned, John, I am a full-time podiatrist. I never thought 6, 7, 8 years ago I would be doing this. Some people know my mom was lecturing a lot. And, in July of 2019, July 2nd to be precise, we were in our hotel room in Krakow, Poland during one of our annual trips with Candles Holocaust Museum. And she had some health problems and she was playing on her social media. And I said, Mom, you're not getting any older. You're 85 years old. When do you think you're going to slow down? And she looked at me like I had two heads. She said, slow down, Alex. What are you talking about? How can I slow down? There's so much hate and bigotry and anti-Semitism and racism in the world. Unfortunately, my work is needed more than ever. in that same hotel room 2 days later, my mom died in my arms. And so I never had an opportunity to ask my mother what my role should be. And unfortunately, as this audience knows, my mom was prophetic in that the anti-Semitism has obviously never gone away, and obviously in the last 3 years or so, it's got much worse. And I think about that conversation with my mom a lot, probably every day, and that's kind of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so to go into the talk here, I am going to talk a little bit about my father's story, which most people don't know about, talk about my mom's story, and then kind of put it all together here. So I am the son of two Holocaust survivors. We're going to talk a little bit about my father. And my father was from a place called Riga, Latvia. My dad, like my mom, was from a very religious Jewish family. My father had three older brothers. And he was like playing soccer as a kid in Riga. Riga, as you can see, is a port city. His life changed July 1st, 1941, when the
Alex, sorry to interrupt, but do you want to pull up your PowerPoint? I noticed that it is not up currently.
oh boy. Okay.
I think we can do that pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, John. So, boy. Let me go back. It says I'm screen sharing, John. So, hmm. um, 1 second.
Okay, well, it appears that everyone except me can see the PowerPoint, so let's go with it, all right?
Okay. No, it's okay. Let me go back to slideshow.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
everyone.
you're fine.
I wanted to make
There we
sure
go.
that you could see it.
Okay. Sorry about that. So my father was from Riga, Latvia, port city, and had three older brothers, and life was pretty normal. He liked playing soccer. And unfortunately, just prior to his 16th birthday, 1941, his father was killed walking down a street. Restrictions were already in place. And the Nazis said, you can't walk on this side of the street. My grandfather was wearing very traditional Jewish garb. He kept on walking on that side of the street. They killed him. Around the same time, one of my dad's brothers, Zora, was part of the Latvian Navy. He was in his 20s, and they found out he was Jewish, and he killed him and threw him overboard. So by the time my father celebrated his 16th birthday in October of 1941, the family was taken from their home against their will. That would be my dad's mother, Mirka, and two other brothers, Shlomo and Leo, taken to a ghetto, not like a ghetto that we would think about perhaps in these United States. This is where they took Jews to decide when and how and where to kill them. And at one point, they're going to liquidate the ghetto. And what that means is they're going to decide who's going to live and who's going to die. And although my father was 16, he looked very young for his age. And typically, when they would liquidate the ghetto, they would put men, younger men that could work on one side of the ghetto, destined for labor camp, women, young children, elderly on the other side of the camp, destined for death. My grandmother, Mirka, went to the side of the ghetto with the women and young children. My dad followed her, and she knew what was going to happen. And she said, Mickey, you go with your two brothers. And my dad said, no, Mom, if they kill you, my life is not worth living. Well, they had an argument, and obviously my grandmother won the argument. My dad went to the side of the ghetto with his two brothers. On November the 30th and December the 8th, 1941, 25,000 Jews were killed in Riga. One of those 25,000 was my grandmother, Mirka. They were then taken, my dad and his two brothers, to a camp called Kaiserwald, another camp called Stutthof. En route to Stutthof, my uncle Shlomo killed a Nazi and escaped, and eventually ended up in the future Jewish homeland of Israel. Now, for the next 2 years, from 1943 to 1945, my dad was with brother Leo. I'll kind of reset the time and the place. Now it's April of 1945. My dad and my uncle Leo could sense the Nazis were losing the war. They didn't like the Nazis when they were winning the war. My dad would use the analogy, it was like a wounded animal. They're the most dangerous when they're wounded. And so my dad and my uncle Leo were taken on a death march near Buchenwald concentration camp. They were being told they're being taken to safer ground, but my dad and my uncle knew this was a death march. And at one point, my dad's thinking, well, they're going to kill us anyway. Now he's 19 or 20 years old. They're going around a ravine and he's going to make a run for it. He runs and they try to shoot after him. They miss. He keeps on running. He keeps on running. He has lice all over him. He hides in the ruins of a building. And the rumor was that the Americans were in the area to liberate. And sure enough, over the next couple hours, there's a fierce battle. And my dad's hoping against hope he doesn't get hit by an errant bullet or grenade. And then he hears silence. Should he come out? He doesn't know what to do. He stays in the hole in the ground, fearing that the Nazis are still there. Then a couple hours later, he hears a weird language. And my dad was great with languages, and he knew it wasn't Hebrew, it wasn't German, it wasn't Russian, wasn't laughing. He thought, well, maybe it's either the Americans or the British. So he comes up with his hands up, and he sees two American GIs, and one of the GIs, Wendell Knox from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, gives my dad a Coca-Cola. To my dad's dying day, he thought of Coca-Cola as his champagne. The leader of this battalion was this gentleman here, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Neff from Terre Haute, Indiana. Mr. Neff eventually found out about my father and realized that my dad would be an asset and not a liability. So they put my dad in American GI clothes. And this was the day this happened, John, the day my dad was liberated. It was April the 15th, 1945. Ironically, years later, my birthday is April 15th. And so for several weeks, my dad's with the battalion, and then they get to a dangerous area. Mr. Neff says, Mickey, you don't know how to use a gun. We're going to be in a battle. I have to put you in a refugee camp. And my dad says, well, I understand, but I want to go where you're from. And Mr. Neff eventually allowed my father safe passage to Terre Haute, Indiana. And one little funny story, my dad in 1946, 47 gets to Terre Haute, finishes high school in 1 year. And then everybody in Indiana is talking about this game called basketball. My dad didn't know what basketball was, but he enrolls at the local college and he finds out that his gym teacher is the basketball coach. So he's very excited because he's going to be taught by a basketball coach in the gym class. And these are some of the letters that my dad wrote. And then that basketball coach, John, you might know, and some of you people on the West Coast obviously know, Coach John Wooden from UCLA. So that was my dad's gym teacher. And kind of a funny story. Now we're going to switch gears. So my dad and my mom did not know each other before during the war. My mom also from a very religious family. She was from the Transylvanian Valley, Hungary, Romania. My grandfather, who I'm named after, Alexander, had two older girls. And now my grandmother is pregnant again. As most people can understand, most faiths and religions, cultures, you want a boy, if nothing else, to carry on the family name. So the midwife comes to deliver, out comes a girl. But then the midwife says, oh, wait, maybe there's another one coming. Maybe it's a boy. And with greater disappointment, my mom, Eva, is born. On this picture that the audience sees, that's my mom and my aunt as babies. My mom's always on the left side. My aunt on the right side, Aunt Miriam, Donna Miriam. The picture to the right is the last family picture taken, which we'll come back to. So life in Transylvania, Hungary, Romania was relatively normal until 1942. So by the time my dad was already in a camp in 41, my mom was still going to school. Then one day, the teacher changed in their small rural community. They were the only Jewish family. The teacher is more of a Nazi sympathizer. And there's a math equation. If you have 5 Jews and you kill 2 Jews, how many Jews are left? I think my mom and aunt were 7 or 8 years old. And my mom and my aunt went home and said, Mommy, Daddy, they're making fun of us at school. And their parents said, well, you just have to take it. We're Jewish. We don't have a choice. And sure enough, things got worse. And in March of 44, similar to my dad's story, the family's taken from their home against their will. This is the last family picture the audience sees on the right side of the screen. My grandfather in the tall black coat, the 2 older daughters to his right and left, my grandmother on the ground, the polka dot dress, my mom to her left, my aunt to the right, a family friend to the far right, and a cousin laying on the ground. The family's taken to a ghetto, and then eventually they're put on a cattle car. And John, nobody told them where they were going. There was no sign that says to so and so. They're put on a cattle car, 100 people on the cattle car. The cattle car went for 3.5 days. And at one point, when they would exchange periodically gold watches for a spritz of water, the language was typically Hungarian. This time it was in German. They knew they were in trouble. The cattle car starts slowing down prematurely. My grandfather takes the family aside and says, if anybody survives wherever we're going to be in Germany, you go to the future Jewish homeland of Israel. The cattle car doors open. They don't know where they're at, but they're at the Auschwitz selection platform. And within seconds, the family is taken from the cattle car, jumped down to the selection platform. My mom and my aunt holding on to dear life to their mother. They're 10 years old, dressed identical in little red dresses. People are shuffling. My mom and my aunt are 10 years old. They can't see above the crowd, and they realize their dad and their two older sisters have disappeared in the crowd, never to be seen again. A Nazi guard's running up and down the selection platform, yelling twins, twins in German. They look at my mom and my aunt, ask my grandmother, are they twins? She says yes. 3 Nazis jump out and separate my mom and my aunt from their mother. The last thing my mom sees is her mother's arms stretched out, crying and screaming as she's taken away. If my mom were speaking to you, she would tell you the one regret she had for her entire life is that she did not know this was the last time she would see her mother, and she never had a chance to say goodbye. My mom and my aunt are taken to a barracks where they're tattooed. My mom's number is A-7063. My aunt's number is A7064. They're taken to a barracks. It's all girl twins. My mom and my aunt were raised to be kosher. They hadn't eaten in 3.5 days. They were given something that looks like bread. My mom and my aunts talked to the other twins and said, well, we're not eating this because we don't know if it's kosher. And we're not eating this until we see our parents. And one of the older twins says, well, as far as the food, if you don't eat it, we'll steal it from you or the rats will eat it. As far as your parents, see the smoke in the distance? That's where your parents are. And my mom and my aunt said, oh, that's crazy. Who would be burning bodies? And one of the older twins says, oh, you'll find out tomorrow when Dr. Mengele comes into the barracks. So sure enough, Dr. Joseph Mengele came into the barracks the next morning with his entourage. He was a scientist, and I use that word in quotations. He was doing experiments on twins. There were 3,000 twins at Auschwitz, 1,500 sets of 2. My mom and my aunt were part of these experiments. And I should add to this slide, without consent. When you and I, John, go to the doctor, we sign a release that's called informed consent. None of the twins were given informed consent. If you look at this picture of Moses, I think it's 12 and 13, Miriam and Eva, that's my mom and my aunt. This is from the Auschwitz State Museum. So these experiments for my mom and my aunt started in May of 44, went through the fall and early winter of 44. If one twin died during the experiments, they would kill the other twin and do comparative autopsies. These continued to November, December. And then at one point, like my dad's story, my mom and my aunt could sense the Nazis were losing the war. At times, the experiments were not every day. And then gradually, the experiments, by December of 44, they stopped. January 1945, a big day. This is the Auschwitz liberation picture. That's my mom and my aunt at the very front of the line. One thing you should be aware of is this is January 27th when Auschwitz was liberated. This picture, which came from a video, is actually in February of 45. On January 27, 1945, the Soviets came. They gave the twins cookie and candy and water and chocolate and said, we'll be back in a couple weeks. When they came back a couple weeks later, they had big motion pictures. My mom, to her dying day, loved attention. So I've seen the video, John, and at the beginning of the video, my mom was in the middle of the line. She ran to the front to be in the front. And there were 5 takes on this video. The 5th take, they just had a birthday. Like a typical 11-year-old, she sticks out her tongue to the camera because she's wanted to go home. The 2 twins behind my aunt look like they have hoodies. Those are the Changara twins. To my knowledge, they're the only sets of twins still alive. Their mother was good friends with my grandmother. So after the war, my mom and my aunt are in an orphanage. And finally, with the help of Mrs. Changara, They get back to their hometown, their village, their house, hoping against hope they would see their parents. They get down to the house, open up the door. The only thing that survived was a family dog. My mom would say Nazis killed people, they didn't kill dogs. Eventually, they move in with an aunt in a neighboring city. And then, as you can imagine, Romania, which is where my mom's aunt lived, became communist. In 1950, my mom, my aunt, and their aunt got a visa to go to Israel, fulfilling her father's wish. Once in Israel, they were they were in the Israeli army. And then, kind of to put the story together and try to conclude here and hopefully open up for questions, John. Um, so my father, who was now living in Indiana, finished pharmacy school at Purdue University. Brother Shlomo, who had killed a Nazi, was now living in Israel. Brother Leo was living in Hartford, Connecticut. So my dad, there was no internet dating in 1959 or 1960. My dad in Terre Haute couldn't meet anybody Jewish. So he went to Israel to see my Uncle Shlomo. Uncle Shlomo, who worked for a newspaper, put an ad in the paper. And my mom's twin, Miriam, had just got married. My mom, at the age of 27, felt like an old hag. My mom sees the ad in the newspaper, Mahariv newspaper, and my mom would never admit this when she lectured. So with her approval, my mom responded to the ad. They went on 3 dates. My mom spoke no English. My dad spoke no Hebrew. On the 3rd date, my dad asked my mom a question. My mom said yes. He pulls out a ring. They're engaged. So eventually, my mom moves back to Terre Haute, where my dad lived. As you can see in this picture, I have a younger sister. We did all the normal things. Growing up in Terre Haute, John, I didn't speak English till I was 5. My mother tongue, my native tongue is Hebrew. When I go back to Israel, it comes back kind of quickly, but I'm not fluent anymore. And we didn't talk about the Holocaust growing up. Having said that, my sister and I knew all the stories. And one quick story, this picture that's to the left, our next door neighbor, Kathy Baker, had a daughter my sister's age. And my sister and Jill were 5 years old. And one day after dinner, my sister's next door playing with Jill. And when our mother, my mom, did the dishes, we would see my mom's number on her left side of her forearm. So my sister sees Mrs. Baker doing the dishes. And my sister says, "Oh, Mrs. Baker, how come you don't have a number? I thought all mommies have numbers." Logical, innocent question. Mrs. Baker, very smart, said, "Rena, you should go ask your mom." So my sister runs back to this house. Mommy, I thought all mommies have numbers. Mrs. Baker doesn't have a number. And I think most mothers to a 5-year-old would say, "You're too young, I'll tell you later." Well, not my mom. And she said, "Rena, remember your father and I told you and your brother that bad people did bad things to us. And one of those bad things was they put a number on my arm." Oh, okay, that makes sense. So we were told very age-appropriate information. And quite frankly, by the time I was 15 or 16, I kind of got fed up with these stories. I even regret to say this. I even told my mom, I think when I was in high school, "Mom, why can't you be like the other mothers?" Well, the other mothers in Terre Haute were not Jewish and were not Holocaust survivors. And so life was pretty normal. And then 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we started having during Halloween, kids would throw corn at the house. It was like a Halloween ritual, I suppose. And that quickly transitioned to anti-Semitism. I can remember distinctly coming home from a PTA meeting with a swastika on our house. It's 1972 or 3, "Go home, dirty Jew." And this really set my mom into a tailspin. And she couldn't understand, the land of the free, home of the brave, how this could happen. This went on for a couple years. And then finally, every October, she would go to Israel to see her sister. And over a period of time, my mom and my aunt kind of piecemealed their story together and met some other twins. And then they formed Candles, which is Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Lab Experiment Survivors. And that was formed in 1985. And so these trips continued. And then in 1987, my aunt started getting sick. And a lot of the twins were starting to have kidney and liver problems. In 1987, my mom donated a kidney to my aunt. When they took the kidney out of my aunt's body, it had not developed beyond the age of 10. She did well for a couple years, and then my aunt died in 1993. One little anecdotal story here. We started going to Auschwitz, by the way, in 1985. This was my first trip. I think I've been over 30 some times. So unfortunately, my aunt died. My mom was beside herself. She was grieving, couldn't go to the funeral because it was the same day she passed away. And so where should she turn? And I think no matter what, John, no matter if you're a high school student or a corporate executive, how do you change your life? How do you pick yourself off the mat? My mom's whole last couple of years of my aunt's life was dedicated to helping my aunt survive. What can she do now? How does she regain focus? So my mom gets a strange phone call about a month or so after my aunt died from a Dr. John Mihalchik, who's Boston College professor who I keep in touch with. He said, Eva, I'm sorry to hear about Miriam. Would you want to start lecturing again? My mom said, sure. What do you have in mind? And Dr. Mihalchik said, we're going to do a medical ethics conference. I want to teach doctors how to be more compassionate with their patients. Would you want to lecture to the doctors here in Boston? And my mom said, oh, sure, Dr. Mihalchik. I love lecturing to the doctors. They think they know everything. I'd like to give them a piece of my medicine. And so he laughed. And he said, well, Eva, I have one other question. You know a lot of people. Maybe you could bring with you one of those Nazi doctors to the meeting in Boston. And my mom said, Dr. Mihalchik, where do you think I could find one of those guys? The last time I looked, they were not advertising in the yellow pages. Those are my mom's words, not mine. He said, well, Eva, you'll think of something. The last project my mom and my aunt worked on was for a German broadcasting company, ZDF. When the final package or the final documentary came out in 1993, just prior to my aunt's passing, there was a Nazi doctor named Hans Munch who was at Auschwitz. He was cleared of all charges. He helped save about 20 some Jewish doctors. He refused to do selections. After the war, he was put on trial at the War Crimes Tribunal in Krakow, 1947. He was the only Nazi doctor allowed to go free. He went back to Germany to practice medicine. So we had contacts. We contacted the Munch family. My mom thought, well, sure, he'll come to Boston. Well, the response was, Eva, he'll give you an interview, but he ain't coming to Boston. You got to go to Germany. My mom was petrified to go to Germany. Even hearing German on an airplane, Lufthansa, she would have nightmares. She would freak out. And so a Dutch TV crew with the family friend Susan Severide joined my mom. This is 3 months after my aunt died. My mom already had a new focus. What was the focus? She thought, well, Dr. Munch had to know what was injected into the twins because he worked alongside Mengele. Maybe I can help the other twins avoid the same predicament as my sister. First question to Dr. Munch in his house. My mom was very nervous. The last time she had interacted with the Nazi doctors, they were not so nice. First question to Dr. Munch. Dr. Munch, what do you know about the experiments at Auschwitz that were done on us? Eva, I don't know anything. He kept everything to himself, but I have nightmares. My mom said, whoa, you have nightmares? I thought we were the ones with the nightmares. Why do you have nightmares, Dr. Munch? Well, you know about the 20-some Jewish doctors I helped save. You know I refused to do selections, but unfortunately, periodically, I was assigned to the gas chamber. Through a little peephole, when the last body stopped moving, I would sign one death certificate. He went on to describe in great detail the operation of the camp, the operation of the experiments, the operation of the gas chamber. My mom was a quick thinker. This is 1993. My mom said, Dr. Munch, people in the world say the Holocaust didn't occur. People around the world say, oh, it really wasn't 6 million. People around the world say, oh, Mengele really didn't do that. You were there, Dr. Munch. Would you come with us to Auschwitz in 1995 for the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz to tell the world what you just told me? He said yes. And so my mom came back to Indiana. I was not on that trip. My mom tells me the story. I said, Mom, I don't know. This is not a good idea. You're bringing a Nazi doctor to Auschwitz for the 50th anniversary. Oh, Alex, you think you know everything. I need to do this because he's going to document history. This is for all the Holocaust deniers, revisionists. But now I need to figure out a way, Alex, to thank a Nazi doctor for doing this. How do you thank a Nazi doctor? I said, Mom, I don't know. She went to the local Hallmark card shop on 25th Street in Terre Haute looking for a thank you card. Nothing seemed appropriate. My mom and dad didn't drink alcohol much. My mom went to a liquor store. Nothing seemed appropriate. For months prior to 1995, my mom kept on thinking, how can I thank a Nazi doctor? Then she called me a couple months in advance. She said, I figured it out, Alex, in my name only. And I emphasize that in my name only, the best way I can thank him, the best way, the best honor I could give another human being, in my name only, I'm going to forgive him for being a Nazi. I said, Mom, I don't know this is, I know you don't like my ideas, but now I need to prepare a document because at some point in history, maybe somebody will read this and I don't want her fifth language was English. So she prepared a document, took it to her local English professor, Dr. Susan Kaufman. Dr. Kaufman, please read this. I want to make sure I don't have any mistakes. And Dr. Kaufman said, Eva, you don't have any mistakes, but I think you're forgiving the wrong guy. No, no, no. I'm thanking Dr. Munch, and the best way I can thank him, the highest honor I could give another human being in my name only, is to forgive him. Eva, you should think about it. So sure enough, on January 27, 1995, 50 years to the day, this is Dr. Munch and my mom en route to the gas chamber, believe it or not, where the ceremony was held. There were 10 other Mengele twins there. They were not happy with my mom doing this. My mom knew this. And true to Dr. Munch's word, and he knew nothing, and I need to emphasize this, he knew nothing about my mom's thank you. He had no idea. But true to his word, he told the world his story. He told that what he did show remorse, but there was no deal made. And then my mom surprised him and said, in my name only, Dr. Munch, the best way I can thank you for documenting history is I'm going to forgive you in my name only. She knew immediately, John, that she was giving him a gift. She did not realize until months later she was giving herself a gift. Quite frankly, she despised and even hated her parents because they didn't save the family. So in her name only, she was going to forgive her mom, her dad, herself. She was going to forgive Mengele in her name only. And then she was going to go the extra mile, which is still very controversial. In her name only, she was going to forgive all Nazis. That part I get the criticism. And I asked my mom, you're opening up a huge can of worms, Mom. I know, but I don't want another Nazi doctor coming forth and saying, well, I worked alongside Munch. Why don't you forgive me too? She wanted to move forward with her life. She didn't want to continue to relive this. And I truly believe that this allowed her to live another 24 years of a life much healthier. Stephen Smith, a great Holocaust scholar and friend, during my mom's celebration of life, made this comment. He said, Eva Kor practiced forgiveness, but I don't think she truly forgave the crimes of the Nazis. And I think forgiveness may not be the correct word, but it's the closest thing in our dictionary. I want to thank you, John. I know I might have gone over a couple of minutes, but I wanted to get the entire story in and happy to answer any questions. And I think to come back to what I talked about at the beginning, it's important that we talk about these stories. I just saw in the news another Holocaust survivor died today. There is still a fair amount alive, but unfortunately, with each passing day, each passing month and year, this history can disappear. And unfortunately, in present day, I think it's very important. It's incumbent upon me, other second and third and fourth generation, to talk about these experiences. And my mom did have this incredible sense of humor, and she had some interesting friends. That's Ed Asner, Elliot Gould, and yes, Nikki Sixx. And I want to give a shout out to my co-author, Graham Honecker, who really was the force behind us writing the book. So I'd like to conclude there, John, and I'll open up for questions.
Well, thanks again, Alex. I really appreciate it. If everybody hasn't seen this book or read this book yet, I do recommend it. It's a blessing, not a burden. I don't know if you could see it that well, but here it is. And it was riveting. You funny, as you're a young man and you meet friends, that's not the first thing you talk about. And it was, Alex is very humble, and didn't learn of this till many years later. And I've just always been the one that, if as long as you're good to me, I'll be good to you, and that's how Alex was, and that's how it's that simple. And today, the tribe, as I call it, the tribe public, is just a derivative of the way I've led my life in connecting and creating communities around the world. And my hope for a global community that we can all learn from each other. And I appreciate that Alex is sharing his story. And by the way, the book is so well written that I found myself getting lost in it and then feeling like I was right next to Eva and Miriam at times and her family, and it made me want to have met her. And I wish that could happen, but that's not going to happen. But it's as close as I can get. Um, one quick question here is: can you speak about your future projects? In any way and direction, give us some understanding there. And you've mentioned that there is also a movie being made. So can you speak to that a bit based on your book?
Sure. So, two responses. One of the future projects, 31 years ago, my mom and dad opened up Candles Holocaust Museum. So we continue to grow as an entity. But yes, to your point, my co-author about a year and a half ago said, I'm writing a screenplay. And I said, what's it about? He said, it's about our book. And so to make a long story short, yeah, Pegasus Pictures is going to be doing a motion picture based upon the book. It'll be a couple years away, and if you're interested, please contact me, or you can find Graham Honecker online. Graham would want me to tell you that there are investment opportunities, but Pegasus Pictures has done a number of films, including A Good Catholic, and there's a film out called The Revisionist out just out. I think it's at Tribeca this weekend with Dustin Hoffman. And so we have a lot of big plans, and yeah, I'm flattered, and I think my mom would be, and my dad would be very happy with the fact that I've done my efforts to try to continue to tell their stories. But yeah, there are some big plans, and I should also have a shout out to Ted Green. Ted Green did a incredible documentary called Eva A-7063 in 2018, and his information and wherewithal and a lot of the details that he uncovered are part of our book and would be part of the movie. So there's a lot of people involved that really are very helpful and meaningful to me and my family.
Well, thank you, Alex. Look forward to the movie as well, and again, in the invites that I sent out, if and I'll send a follow up now that you've joined one of our tribe events. Is I'll include the link to it on Amazon, so if anybody does want to get a hold of it, and you can't find it, just let me know. But it is at Amazon. Uh, Two quick questions here, Alex, that came up during the event. Says, what lessons do you believe we can learn about medical ethics from Ava's story? Is the first question.
Yeah, great question. When I do speak to medical audiences, I think it's so incumbent upon doctors, researchers, professors. My mom would answer this the following way: as soon as you start treating your patient or subject like a number rather than a person, you're heading toward that line between Nazi medicine and what we would call, you know, typical medicine or ethical medicine. And so my mom would want you as a doctor, me as a healthcare provider, which I try my best to educate the patient, to give them that what's called informed consent. You can't treat patients like numbers. And I think, yes, it's difficult at times. A lot of doctors suffer from burnout, because they take their homework, their work home with them. But I think the important take-home lesson is to make sure that you treat every person like a person, treat them like a human being, treat them like perhaps like a family member. And there is a line there you can't cross, but I think it's so important to educate your patients, to inform them, to make sure they understand the options. I think my mom would answer that question that way.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. And then the second question was, what are your thoughts about the recent release of the Mengele files by the Swiss authorities, especially in light of Ava's, Eva's belief in forgiveness.
Yeah, so I know bits and pieces about that. I haven't seen all the information. I have some friends who are helping with a lot of these uncovering a lot of these documents. So I don't. I'm very intrigued by them. I'd like to know more. As we all know, Mengele ended up in South America. A lot of these documents, I'm hopeful, will uncover his passage from Germany. And I think, at the end of the day, if my mom were still alive, she would hope that some of these documents would actually show what was injected into the twins. There are very few twins still alive, but I think it would help at least uncover some of the things that my mom spent most of her life looking for, exactly what was injected into them. It won't help the ones that have passed away, but maybe it could help some of the ones still living.
Well, thank you, Alex. Another question popped up. It says, do either of you know from the name itself if Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Neff was a German American? Do you have
No,
any
he
idea?
was no, he's no, he from Terre Haute, and I keep in touch with his family. He got an engineering degree from Rose Poly, and no, I believe he was third or fourth generation American living in Indiana.
Got it. Thank you. Here's a quick question. We know that both Ava and Mickey had a great sense of humor. I think you mentioned that. Can you share an example of that humor that people might like to hear today?
I'll tell two stories. 1995, we were on our group with Candles Holocaust Museum in a big bus. And this was during the reunion, the anniversary, there's security everywhere. And we had a whole itinerary planned. And so we get to the gate to get into Auschwitz. They won't let us in. So my mom gets off the gate or gets out of the bus, approaches the gate. Two guards from the Auschwitz State Museum approach her. Ma'am, how can I help you? Well, I have a group here. We're supposed to be in there. We can't let you in. It's restricted. My mom rolls up her sleeve and says, "Look, there's my number. 50 years ago, you wouldn't let me out. Now you won't let me in. Gates open up." And so we went right in. And so, I think that just showed my mom's sense of humor. I'll give you another quick story about my father. My dad was a very, very loyal Purdue fan. Um, as we mentioned, his college gym teacher was John Wooden, who was an All-American at Purdue, but my dad eventually went to Purdue and had season tickets to Purdue football and basketball for 40 years. So when he retired as a pharmacist at the museum in Terre Haute, he wore a Purdue bucket hat, Purdue sweatshirt. He wasn't going to wear a suit and tie anymore. And so one day, have a young group, teenagers, and they're asking questions. Mr. Kor, and this is in no way, I should say, in no way to demean the Holocaust or anything I'm going to say or have said. My parents lost over 200 family members, but I think it gives you a sense of how my father responded and how people responded to my dad. And how a kid, this is a 10-year-old kid, he says, Mr. Core, I don't have a question, I have a comment. What's your comment, Johnny? You have the worst luck in the world, Mr. Core. Why is that? Well, you were a Jew in Germany during World War II, and you're a Purdue fan in the state of Indiana, where a lot of us know there are a lot of IU fans. And again, no way, but it just shows you how kids think. And I think the take home message is that there were 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kids coming to the museum, which they still do, to learn about the Holocaust. And one other little story, one time my mom's giving a lecture to a bunch of 10-year-olds, and an innocent question, Mrs. Kor, I have a question. Who taught you how to survive Auschwitz? My mom was a quick thinker. I wish I was. She gets right in the face of the little boy. He takes a step back, and my mom says, "Why'd you take a step back?" Well, you got too close to me, Mrs. Court. That's how I survived Auschwitz. Meaning, nobody taught. Everything was knee-jerk response, seat of her pants. I'll go right or left. I'll go right. So I think, without showing any graphic bodies or anything that would be in any way threatening to a 10-year-old, she made a very basic gesture. And I think that 10-year-old kid who's now an adult probably will never forget that.
Yeah. Those are great stories. Thank you, Alex. Well, I know we've run over our time limit today, but I wanted to make sure that we got out this great message of forgiveness, healing, and also about your wonderful book, A Blessing, Not a Burden, and bring some light to you and your family, and hopefully, it's a calming and healing story for those to hear. And I look forward to getting this globally across the world. And one of the things that I've learned along the way is that your father was quite gifted with the pen and penned over, was it over 500 letters? Is that what you said? It was
Oh, easily, yes.
easily, yeah. And they're amazing. So one of the things I challenge you, maybe we think about this going forward, is that from time to time, maybe special occasion or whatever it might be, I think people would like to hear some of these letters. Some of them you share inside your book. So I would encourage everyone to get a copy of A Blessing, Not a Burden. But I think it might be kind of fun to highlight a couple of these as we go forward, maybe on a tribe event or two. And the other thing I would remind everyone is that if you'd like to actually meet Dr. Kor, we might be able to get him out at some of our tribe events. As you know, we do these live events over dinners, luncheons, and speak engagements, piggybacking existing meetings. And if that's of interest, please just go to the website, tribepublic.com, at our wish list and submit your interest. Or reach out to me at john@tribepublic.com, and I'm happy to try to pass that on and be a liaison going forward and see if that might be of interest for Dr. Kor if he could fit into his schedule. Yes, yes, Alex.
I just want to finish up with a couple things. As far as healing and the Holocaust, it took my mom 50 years to consider forgiveness. So I don't want to leave people with a message that we were all just thinking kumbaya. It took a long process. And I will also tell you, my dad was your typical survivor, was not so forgiving, but did ultimately forgive a Nazi after my mom died. And you can find out more information about the book. And last thing, if my mom were here speaking to you, she would tell each of your audience members, John, if each of us could think of one thing tomorrow morning to make the world better when we get out of bed, the world's going to be a better place. And thank you so much for doing this and this opportunity, and hopefully, like future collaborations, it'd be great. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks again. Thanks everybody for joining. Quick reminder, the video, I'll try to get it up later today at the Tri Public YouTube channel and then send it out the e-newsletter tomorrow. Thanks for taking the time to meet Dr. Kor and be on the tribe here with us. And thanks again, Alex, and look forward to speaking to you soon. All the best.
Thanks.